Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session on collaborations in education. I am Rukmini Banerjee from Pratham, and very happy that we have a very diverse collection of people, organizations, and collaborations here together. हमारे पास चार अलग अलग कह सकते हैं टीम है किसी टीम में अकेले ऑफ कोर्स देयर आर बिग टीम्स बिहाइंड एवरीवन बट किसी किसी के टीम में लोग अकेले हैं कहीं पे पैर है कहीं पे तीन लोग हैं सो वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ वेरिएशन इन दैट राइट एंड द वे वी विल डू दिस इज दैट एक फर्स्ट राउंड में सभी लोग have 10 minutes to talk about what kinds of collaborations they've been in before, what kind of collaborations may have come up during COVID, and then anything that you feel that between what you had before and what you have now that seems to be an enduring feature or something that you have learned that you're going to take forward. उसका थोड़ा सा भी अगर जिक्र कर लें तो फिर सेकंड राउंड में हम उसी चीज को पिकअप करके उसको आगे लेकर जा सकते हैं. We are very diverse, so I'm very keen to hear that are there any common threads that will emerge. But more than anything, I want to thank everyone because in my family, people are referring to certain kinds of people in my life as my COVID friends. People I've never met, but now I feel I know very well, and some of you are like that. So for me personally, this is a very lovely way to kind of just come together and have what I hope will be a nice, cool chat. So here's what we'll do. We are still waiting for one of our panel members to join. So we will wait. Smithin and Reshma and your team, maybe we'll go later till Mr. Ramatkar comes. But maybe Mirai, can we start with you? You're on mute, Mirai.
Sorry about that. I was taking the instructions seriously. So thank you very much. और मैं हिंदी में बोलूं कि अंग्रेजी में बोलना है? दोनों में से एक आप पसंद करिएगा. I can't hear you, Rukmini. हाँ. All right. So English or Hindi?
English is fine. English is fine.
Sure. So I would like to start, of course, with our collaboration with Pratham, because Pratham, as you said, are our new COVID friends. Of course, we've known about each other, Pratham and SEWA, for a long time. And here I must thank our moderator, Rukmini. I was racking my brains and I realized it was she who reached out proactively to me. And I think that was very important for us, that we didn't even know that you were producing so many creative videos and games for children during lockdown and beyond. And so we thank you most sincerely for that. We found those videos and games with simple tools and things in people's households extremely useful and creative. Not only the children loved them, but also the parents. They also equally played along with their kids. And very quickly, we were able to scale up wherever SEWA has a base in about 8 states. We started in Gujarat, but we went on to another 7 states. And we are in regular contact with about 2,500 families. It's a small number because these are the only ones we could keep in touch with. But then it's had a spread effect, as we understand, because each person, each kid then shared with their friends, and so on. So we haven't been able to keep track of that. There were no financial implications. I mean, we didn't have to pay for this or any such transaction. But quickly moving to the learnings, I think that the leadership of both the organizations were extremely committed to this collaboration and partnership from day one. Certainly, we at SEWA were very excited because education is not a sector strictly, I mean, primary school education, if we limit to that, is not a sector that SEWA works in. We do work in early childhood care. And so that was a real boon for us, if I may say so. Couple of other things that came up, some recently, we have these games and videos in different languages. In some states like Punjab, as you may expect, some Parents have been saying to us, we'd like some of this in English so that the children begin to hear English a bit more because English is not spoken in the home. As I said, the SEWA network at the grassroots level has been used to spread these messages far and wide. I think what really worked was regular contact between our two organizations' teams, regularly giving feedback, sharing reports. As I said, one of the things we've not been so strong on from our side is tracking, the spread effect, which perhaps we can think about doing better. Some of the other challenges and issues have been the connectivity, internet connections, and the cost for low-income families, families of children and informal workers who don't even have money to eat. Paying for internet is an issue. The digital divide, particularly because mothers don't have the smartphones. Usually they're with the fathers, and as the lockdown, as it opened up, then fathers went out to work, and so no smartphones. Of course, there have been other ways that Pratham has innovated on this. And the other thing that I think is interesting is because this collaboration was fruitful and is continuing to be fruitful, A, we intend to continue, and B, now we are collaborating with Pratham on a larger program to develop early childhood aids and education in underserved Adivasi areas, tribal areas. And so we're looking forward to a new partnership, if you will. And Rukmini, if there's a little more time, do I have a little more time? Yes, I do. So I also want to share about a larger collaboration on health, because essentially COVID-19 is a pandemic. It's a public health emergency, and I'm a public health worker. And one of the things we were able to do very quickly was train 800 frontline grassroots women workers on COVID-19 do's and don'ts, but also on reproductive and sexual health, mental health and psychosocial care, which, as we know, is so important, and also addressing increasing gender-based violence and child abuse in the home, particularly in the lockdown period. And because we partnered with others, I believe, we were very quickly able to again scale up and reached, in a short time of 3 months, 15 lakh persons in 11 states. We partnered with our own sister SEWAs, sister organizations within the SEWA movement, but importantly, we also partnered with NGOs in the northeast of India and in the desert regions of Western Rajasthan. So this way we were able to reach unreached areas and areas where we didn't have a base. So tribal areas also of North Gujarat, then the Northeast, Meghalaya and Nagaland. Here we raised financial resources from the World Health Organization and the Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiative. And we were able to do two important things. One, these 800 grassroots frontline workers, we were able to provide them with some incentive based on their performance, which they later said was life-saving. From that money, they could buy food and other essentials. And also we were able to support some of the grassroots organizations for supervisory costs. Other learnings, we were able to adapt to digital. The good news was that grassroots level women took to digital like duck to water. They were not afraid like many more educated types. They loved the digital, particularly WhatsApp and voice messages. They also, for the first time, were dealing with health subjects like sexual and reproductive health, which were a big hit with the women. They also said that when we were learning all these things on the smartphone, which belonged to our husband, particularly on gender-based violence, the entire family was listening, including him, which was helpful, they felt. Quickly on the learnings, scaling up and rapid spread, I've already said, also in culturally appropriate language. How would we know how to speak or present in Khasi language of Meghalaya or Marwadi language of the desert regions or Bhil language of North Gujarat? Digital tools, I've already said, women took to it and local communities took to it very well. Again, here the challenges were connectivity, almost nil connectivity in the northeast and the desert areas. digital divide, particularly gender digital divide, the need for digital literacy. And earlier, as I mentioned, many women at grassroots don't have smartphones. The men folk have them. This is a low-cost model, which now the WHO is taking up. So that's the good news. And we are now partnering with the World Health Organization and other organizations and the existing partners for a larger, longer-term program on mental health and psychosocial care. So I think I'll stop there. In the second round, if there's time, I'd like to share about collaboration with the government. So there are different experiences. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Mirai, on both fronts, health and as well as in education, where you really don't have a major activity. Maybe we can move to Swati and the experiences that UBS has had. I would invite Swati Annapurni to maybe have a conversation that can help to lay out not just what you've been doing with us, but I think, Swati, other kinds of collaborations that you see in which maybe the collaboration that you're doing with Pratham is just one of them. So over to you, Swati.
Thanks, Rukmini. I thought that maybe what I could talk about was the work that we're doing on the Quality Education India DIB, because of course that's got Pratham in it as well, but it's all, as you know very well, it's also got a whole lot of other collaborators. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
So for those of you, I guess not on the panel, but also in the audience who are maybe a little less familiar, DIB structure, that's a development impact bond. The construct of the structure is basically that donors or sort of outcome funders don't pay upfront for any kind of social impact that they're seeking to reach, but specify what outcomes they would like achieved and what sort of the price they would like to pay per outcome. And somebody like a UBS Optimus Foundation would come in and say, all right, I'd be happy to help you achieve these outcomes, and I will go out and sort of look for what I think would be the most impactful service partners that we could find, such as Pratham, and I will work with them to sort of, ensure that those outcomes are achieved. And in this scenario, an Optimus Foundation would basically front the capital that's required by the service partners and would only be paid back in a scenario where those outcomes are met. So that's sort of the general structure for a DIB. I think the specific DIB that I'm speaking about is one that was launched 3 years ago. It's called the Quality Education DIB. It's general purpose is basically to reach out to 200,000 children over a period of 4 years and improve their learning outcomes across a variety of areas. And as you can sort of, I think, maybe able to guess, in a structure where, payments are very much linked to what's achievable at the end, right? Sort of in the nature of the instrument, what's sort of fixed is that a lot of collaboration is required very upfront around agreeing on what we prioritize as outcomes, as impact. So early on, a lot of the discussion sort of focus on what is it really that, how do we measure impact? What is really the right sort of impact from a learning outcomes? What are the right learning outcomes that we really should be prioritizing? There's a lot of discussion again, around sort of what are the targets in such a scenario, given that we sort of live in a world where we may not always have the best data that applies to every scenario, every type of geography. A lot of sort of what the outcome and eventually ends up being through these discussions is reliant on the kind of, the spirit of collaboration that you can actually that you can bring to the table. So a lot of these negotiations go on for a while, and I think some of our learnings have basically been in that it's very important, I think, early on to identify in a structure like this, what are sort of the skill sets that you think will be necessary. So in this specific one, for example, we have the Dell Foundation as a partner, and they've got a lot of experience with outcomes assessments, through their portfolio, and more generally sort of also seeding organizations that actually do assessments. So they were a terrific partner. Because you sort of need forward-looking outcome funders as well to come on board, we have the British Asian Trust, who is also a partner, who's got a lot of experience bringing together a coalition of funders who may be forward-leaning as well. And a variety of other partners, such as Dalberg, and sort of our assessment agency, which is GMI as well, who also had to, I think, really collaborate very closely in determining what would be the best situation for the cohort, for the group, as discussions evolved. I think the other learning that we realized was that despite having a common vision, which is, of course, improved learning outcomes for children, being sort of focused on outcomes, there are always competing interests. And while the DIB sort of allows you to sort of surface those early on because there are formalized contracts, etc., I think it's always sort of helped us through the process to know that we're working with people that you like. So I think building those human relationships, I think, has been something that's really critical, particularly as a lot of these conversations have tended to go on for a while. So I think that human aspect is something that we've realized cannot be emphasized enough. And something that I think, as Rukmini mentioned, her COVID friends, I think we also have a lot of DIB friends now that we've built over the years. I think another piece that we realized is possibly early on, sort of, while, as Rukmini also said, there are a lot of teams that are involved through the work in each organizations, through the conversations. I think for each organization, having the right people represented is very important. So decision makers, of course, otherwise a lot of the nuances that actually need decision points on don't actually get, it takes time to take a call on them. So having decision makers in the room right from the get-go is something that we've realized is quite critical. And I think something that doesn't always get emphasized enough is leveraging local expertise rather than relying on foreign experts. For us has been, I would say, a source of tremendous help and tremendous sort of success, I think. Indian partners have a strong range of capabilities, whether that's local intermediaries, evaluation agencies, all of whom we've selected locally for this partnership. And I think that's sort of been a critical factor to the success of the DIB as well. And I think, to sort of put this in the context of COVID, while everything has been hunky-dory, we've been lucky enough. I think all our partners, we've had 4 service partners along with Pratham that we've worked with on this, have shown sort of tremendous performance. We've overshot our targets across the board. COVID, of course, has been a curveball for everybody. And I think in a partnership as well, while you may not be able to anticipate the sort of nature of curveball, I think one thing that's sort of become clear is to always sort of at least have that comfort up front that if something like this were to surface, how would you sort of work through something like this? And going back to what I said about having those human relationships and having people in the room that you actually share a vision with, who are committed to sort of ultimately that long-term perspective, which often collaborations actually require, has, I think, been a critical factor in us being able to weather the COVID storm in some senses. The COVID for the DIP specifically has required us to redesign, reevaluate, set new targets in many instances as well. And a lot of that has depended upon people in the room being open to those discussions, recognizing the realities on the ground, a lot of give and take as well in the collaboration. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there. And over to you, Rukmini.
So very interesting, from very large-scale work that Mirai spoke about. Swati, you are carrying quite a complex set of organizations, alliances within alliances. Now we can move to perhaps in many ways the youngest collaboration here. And so over to Chavi and Bhushita. Chavi, just introduce yourself a little bit, and of course, Bhushita, you should do, and describe, how you came together and what has been going on.
So you want to go first?
Sure. So, hello everyone. I am Bhushita Ahuja and I am the co-founder of Samvedna Foundation. And I'm basically 16 years old right now. And a couple of months ago, my brother and I, we both had this vision in our mind and a dream to take chess to every nook and corner of the country. And then the pandemic emerged and we were all thinking, how can we make this dream come true? That's when I met Chavi ma'am on LinkedIn, and that's where we connected, and that's where the journey started, and this collaboration took place, and we were able to reach out to 350 plus underprivileged kids from across 7 states in India, and the classes have been going on for quite a few months now, and they happen on a weekly basis, and children are learning from coaches in like regional languages, and it has been a great journey so far, and we are hoping to do a lot more in future as well. So I feel that team truly means together everyone achieves more, and that's what a team stands for. And it's I have learned so much from these past few months and this collaboration. Pratham has taught me a lot, the way the team functions, the way they are so proactive about everything, the way they organize everything and structure everything so well. That's what I have learned from this journey, and I feel that a collaboration is really helpful and fruitful for both parties, because each party brings in their set of skills and expertise and their set of experiences, and then when both of them collaborate together, then both are able to learn something from each other. So it's been a very like I've learned a lot through this journey, and I know how the real world works, as I would say. I have always learned things in the textbook since the past few years, because I'm a school student, but this collaboration has taught me that how everything functions practically. So it's been a great journey, and thank you so much.
Chavi, do you want to add a little bit, because you're the connector, the human relationship that Swati is talking about?
Yeah.
This is a new way of finding collaborators, is to go on LinkedIn and look. So do you want to tell us a little bit about both
Sure.
you guys moved and how you got people in different states to help?
Right. So, hello everyone. My name is Chavi Jain. I've been with Pratham for over 5 years now. I'm part of the international collaborations team, and this collaboration is a bit different. So, as Bhushita said, she reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I get many requests on LinkedIn usually, and sometimes I reply, but they don't go anywhere. But she wrote a very beautiful email, and I forwarded a message, and I forwarded it to Rukmini ma'am and Madhav sir, and they were like, talk to her and understand what she wants to do. And I spoke with her, and she spoke at length about what she wanted to do, her passion of chess, and it was firstly like amazing to hear that from Bhushita. So then internally we connected. So our digital team at the central level, we connected. We thought about, we spoke with Bhushita. So again, what she reached out to me saying, you work with children. Can you give us 15 to 20 children, or can we work with 15 to 20 children who we can work with? And at Pratham, we think at scale, right? So when I with our team, our central teams, they were like, let's try it out, but let's try it out in at least 6 states. so that we understand the kinds of challenges that come in such a model, and how we can work towards something that can be implemented at scale. So really, like, then we spoke with our state team members. They spoke with children and parents, and that's how we just started. So it was right from the beginning very organic, and everyone liked the idea of helping children learn chess. It was very new for us, because at Pratham, as such, we hadn't implemented any kind of chess program. So really, like, what Bhushita and Bhavik or Samvedna brought in was the chess knowledge, and what Pratham brought in this partnership was this idea, or this systematic way of thinking about a program and implementing, and of course and connection with parents.
Just if I just push you guys a little bit, that Bhushita came saying that I want to work with 15-20 children, and she probably had something in mind, even though it was during the COVID time. But then suddenly going to 5 or 6 states with a group of children in each state, and clearly for chess you needed some people who knew chess to work with them. How do you find all these other people who are the coaches? How did that happen?
So I did have quite a few coaches who I connected on LinkedIn, and I spoke to them and told them that, I'm very passionate about this game, and you've been playing chess for so many years. And if we can take this game to, every part of the country, it's going to help so many people, because chess has so many benefits in real life. Like, chess helps with concentration, it improves your academic score results, it helps build critical thinking skills. A lot of benefits are there, and that's why we wanted to give the underprivileged kids an opportunity to grow. And when I told them that, they are underprivileged kids, and if you can teach them just once a week for 1 hour, it will make a huge difference in the society. And giving back to the society should be something that everyone should work for in their life, because it brings them self satisfaction. That's how I put the message across to them, and I was very happy. I was actually not sure whether they're going to agree at first, but I was very happy to see their response and the positive way in which they replied back, and they have been continuously supporting us throughout the journey. So that's how I reached out. So I was like, after we discussed with Pratham, we got states, like we wanted to work with Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and we wanted people who could speak, coaches who could interact in regional languages. Like in Maharashtra, we wanted coaches who could take the class in Marathi, or in Karnataka we wanted them to take a class in Kannada. So it was important to find coaches from that very state and not just anywhere in the country. So I specifically searched for coaches from those states, and then when I reached them, they agreed, and we were able to scale it up. And of course, Pratham has also, this collaboration, and has taught me ambition and practicality both. Like, I was not sure that we could make it so scalable yet viable. And this is what I've learned, that, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. You just have to go one step at a time.
As you can see, Bhujita's dream of getting chess to every corner of the other day we were talking and we said India, and her brother, who really also should have been here with us, said, no, every corner of the world we want children to be playing chess. And they seem amazing at finding people and convincing them to join. So we'll come back to maybe discuss more. But let me go to Reshma and Smithin. Tell us who you are, where you came from, and sorry.
Ji, thank you very much, and very happy to see the diverse group, and इतने अलग अलग अनुभव है. So हमारा अनुभव जो हम बात करने वाले हैं वो है हवा और जमीन, इन दोनों का कोलैबोरेशन है. और इस कोलैबोरेशन में हवा और जमीन के बीच में जितने लोग आते हैं वो सबको इकट्ठा होके कोविड के पीरियड के बीच में बच्चों की शिक्षा को लेकर काम करना पड़ रहा है. एंड हमारा प्रयास ये है कि इस कोलैबोरेशन से, जिसमें जितने सारे लोग जुड़े हुए हैं, हम ये प्रयास में लगे हुए हैं कि जो बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जा पा रहे अभी कोरोना की वजह से, स्कूल्स बंद हैं, तो ऐसा ना हो जाए कि जब स्कूल वापस खुलेंगे, हमें आशा है कि जल्दी से जल्दी सिचुएशन नॉर्मल हो और वी कम बैक टू द नॉर्मलसी, बट उस पीरियड तक जो बहुत बड़ा गैप तैयार हो रहा है उसको स्कूल की तरह तो नहीं, मतलब उसको वैसे माहौल नहीं दिया जा सकता, लेकिन पिछले कई वर्षों से जो हम काम पेरेंट्स, समुदाय और स्कूल, ये दोनों को नजदीक लाने का काम जो पिछले कई वर्षों से हम कर रहे थे, उस अनुभव को ध्यान में रखते हुए एक जमीनी स्तर पर काम करते वक्त एक हवा का एक लेयर तैयार किया गया, और उस ऑर्बिट से हमें ये दिखाई दे रहा है कि हर स्तर पर अलग अलग लेवल का कोलैबोरेशन है। सो मैं शुरुआत करना चाहूंगा एकदम टॉप लेवल का जो ऑर्बिट है वो है प्रथम आकाशवाणी। रेशमा मेरी साथी है जो आकाशवाणी से रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है, और रमतकर जी हमारे और गवर्नमेंट के प्रतिनिधि है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र के प्रतिनिधि है, जो डिप्यूटी डायरेक्टर है रीजनल एकेडमिक सेंटर ऑफ महाराष्ट्र, जो काफी क्लोजली इस प्रोग्राम से जुड़े हुए हैं, एंड प्रथम की तरफ से मैं रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा हूँ। तो ये तीनों ऊपर लेवल का ऑर्बिट है, बट इसके नीचे नीचे जैसे आप जाओगे इस कोलैबोरेशन का जो अलग अलग लेवल पे आपको अलग अलग पार्टनर्स दिखाई देंगे, तो मैं थोड़ा सा एकदम जमीनी स्तर का कोलैबोरेशन जो है वो बताना चाहूंगा। पहले गांव के स्तर पर अगर आप देखेंगे तो इस पूरे चित्र में जहां पे बच्चों की शिक्षा को कंटिन्यू रखने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है, तो वहां पे बच्चे हैं, पेरेंट्स हैं जो दिए गए काम को करते रहते हैं, एंड देन उनकी मदद करने के लिए टीचर्स हैं, गांव के इलेक्टेड मेंबर्स हैं, प्रधान हैं, सरपंच है, अलग अलग लोग इसमें जुड़े हुए हैं। और विशेष जो इस पूरे प्रयास में एक समुदाय या एक हिस्सा ऑफ कम्युनिटी आगे आया है वो यंग एडल्ट्स हैं, जो भूषिता जैसे यंग एडल्ट्स हैं गांव में रहने वाले, जिन्होंने आगे आकर मदद की है कि इस प्रोसेस में मदद कर रहे हैं। तो एंड इस दोनों के बीच में बहुत सारे गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स अलग अलग स्तर पे हैं, जिसमें आई थिंक एजुकेशन में काम करने वाले लोग ये बहुत जल्दी से समझ पाएंगे कि स्पेशली जब छोटे बच्चों की बात आती है, तो वो जो हम बहुत समय से चाह रहे थे कि ICDS, मतलब विमेन एंड चाइल्ड यूनिट एंड एजुकेशन एंड सारे लोग इकट्ठा आके कुछ कर पाए, एंड ये जो आंगनवाड़ी से बच्चे कक्षा 1 में जाने वाला जो ट्रांजिशन है, स्कूल में जाने का जो ट्रांजिशन है, बच्चे, परिवार और आंगनवाड़ी और स्कूल, इसमें तालमेल लाने का जो काम हमने सोचा था वो इस प्रोग्राम में हुआ है। सो बिफोर आई थिंक मैं रेशमा और रमतकर जी भी, रमतकर जी एक्चुअली अभी दूसरे प्लेटफॉर्म पे सारे जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट के कलेक्टर्स हैं उनके साथ प्रोग्राम का अपडेट्स ले रहे हैं, बट वो जल्दी हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं। मैं एक छोटा सा क्लिप यहाँ पे दिखाना चाहूंगा सो दैट ये प्रोग्राम क्या है, जिसमें आकाशवाणी एंड बच्चों के साथ कैसे हम कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं, वो एक झलक हमको देखने को मिल सकती है। सो आई होप आप स्क्रीन देख पा रहे हैं जी। है, मैं पूरी नहीं दिखाऊंगा बट झलक दिखा।
या लॉकडाऊनच्या काळात शाळा, अंगणवाडी बंद आहे आणि मुलं पूर्ण वेळ घरी आहे, पण थोडा तरी अभ्यास व्हायलाच हवा ना। म्हणूनच शाळेबाहेरची शाळा या विशेष कार्यक्रमामध्ये मी RJ रेशमा आपल्या सगळ्यांचं स्वागत करते।
लॉकडाउन बैठे बैठे हम पढ़ रहे थे। इस प्रोग्राम के जरिए हम बहुत कुछ सीखे हैं। थैंक यू शाळेबाहेरची शाळा.
तो बहुत ही शॉर्ट में मैं आगे स्टॉप किया हूं, बट मैं बताना चाहूंगा कि इसका स्वरूप क्या है। तो बेसिकली जैसे ही लॉकडाउन शुरू हुआ, सब में सवाल था कि हम अपने पूरे चर्चा हो रही थी कि सब बच्चों तक तो ऑनलाइन माध्यम नहीं है और हम हर बच्चों तक कनेक्टिविटी बना नहीं पाएंगे। तो शुरू में व्हाट्सएप की मदद ली गई, तो डिजिटल कोलैबोरेशन भी काफी हुआ। एंड उसमें ये दिख रहा है कि बहुत सारे डिवाइसेस, बहुत सारे तरीके ढूंढे गए। तो पहला प्रयास किया गया कि व्हाट्सएप के माध्यम से बच्चों को कुछ कुछ मटेरियल पढ़ने के लिए, सुनने के लिए, देखने के लिए भेजा जाए। देन जल्द ही हमें समझ में आया कि हम कुछ ही हिस्से तक, मतलब महाराष्ट्र का डेटा अगर देखें तो 30 to 39% बच्चों तक ही हम व्हाट्सएप के मदद से पहुंच पा रहे थे। तो ये बहुत बड़ा सवाल एक स्टेट के सामने था कि हम क्या करें कि जिससे बाकी और बच्चों तक भी हमारी पहुंच बने। तो एक छोटा और इनपुट लिया गया और एक तरह प्रयास किया गया कि एसएमएस नाम की टेक्नोलॉजी का फिर से उपयोग किया गया। एंड जल्दी हमें समझ में आया कि 30% और बच्चे उससे जुड़े। तो होता ऐसे है कि हर दिन एक मैसेज आप स्क्रीन पे देख पा रहे हैं, बहुत सिंपल मैसेज, 70 से 80 कैरेक्टर का मैसेज जो एक स्क्रीन पे छोटे मोबाइल में दिख सकता है। मैसेज बच्चों को भेजे जाते हैं। एक सैंपल के तौर पे जो मैसेज है कि अपने घर की वस्तुएं बच्चों को गिनने के लिए कहें, जैसे चम्मच, कटोरी आदि, पहले करके दिखाएं, फिर बच्चों को करने को कहें। ये बहुत सिंपल मैसेज जाता है, बट आई थिंक जैसे स्वाति ने कहा कि ह्यूमन एलिमेंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। नहीं तो सिर्फ हवा से मैसेज आके नहीं चलेगा। सो हमने ये सोचा कि इस बात को हर गांव के स्तर पर फॉलो अप करने की बहुत जरूरत है। टीचर्स ने अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ कम्युनिकेशन करना शुरू किया, साथ साथ गांव के युवाओं को भी हमने अपील करना शुरू किया। तो गांव के सरपंच, गांव के युवा सब इकट्ठा आकर ये कोशिश करने लगे। आई थिंक ये बहुत ही सिंपल सा कदम था कि जो मैसेज बच्चों के पढ़ाई के लिए प्रशासन की तरफ से या रेडियो की तरफ से आ रहे हैं, वो हमारे गांव के हर बच्चे तक पहुंचे। इसके लिए लोगों ने बहुत अलग अलग तरीके अपनाने शुरू किए। तो उस प्रोसेस में ने अलग अलग तरीके के कोलैबोरेशंस किए। कई लोगों ने कहा कि हम स्क्रीन बोर्ड पे, ब्लैक बोर्ड पे गांव के दीवार पे लिखेंगे ताकि बच्चों तक मैसेज पहुंचे। कई लोगों ने चिट्ठी लिख के अपने बच्चों तक पहुंचाने का प्रयास किया। तो शुरू शुरू में ये रहा था। एक छोटी और क्लिप में दिखाने वाला हूं, जिसमें पहली बार किसी गांव में ये बात सामने आई कि हमारे गांव के बहुत सारे बच्चे, जहां तक ये आपके मैसेजेस पहुंचते नहीं है, तो इस गांव के समाज मंदिर और गांव के युवकों ने मिलकर सरपंच की मदद से लाउड स्पीकर की मदद ली और ऑडियो प्रोग्राम, जहां पे बच्चों के साथ इंटरेक्शन हो रहा है, उनको जो मैसेज दिया जा रहा है उसके बारे में बातचीत की जा रही है कि आपको कोई दिक्कत आई, आपको कैसे मजा आ रहा है। तो माँ और बच्चे के साथ जो इंटरेक्शन करते हैं रेडियो के माध्यम से, रेशमा और मैं बात करते हैं बहुत सारे बच्चों के साथ कॉल के माध्यम से, और कौन से बच्चे तक मैसेज पहुंचा रहे। तो बहुत शुरुआती दौर का ये वीडियो है जिसमें एकदम स्ट्रिक्ट था, बहुत लोग बाहर नहीं जाने। तो में ये लाउड स्पीकर का इस्तेमाल करके गांव वालों ने
गोरेगाव नावाचं गाव आहे मूर्तिजापूर तालुक्यात, जिल्हा अकोल्यामध्ये। ते कीर्ती कळम आणि तिची आई वर्षा कळम तिच्याची गोडावर कीर्ती 5वीतली विद्यार्थी आहे। नमस्कार वर्षाताई. नमस्कार. कशा आहात तुम्ही? मी चांगली आहे. तुम्ही कशा आहात? आम्ही पण एकदम मस्त. नमस्कार वर्षाताई. नमस्कार. आज तुमच्याशी प्रत्यक्ष बोलताना मला खूप आनंद झाला.
इस प्रकार हम इंटरेक्शन करते हैं कि आप कैसे हैं, क्या हो रहा है, आपको मैसेज मिला क्या, कोई दिक्कत आई, या अगर आपको कर रहे हैं तो आपको कैसे हुआ। एंड थोड़े दिन बाद जब लॉकडाउन खत्म हुआ तो आपने देखा कि कुछ बच्चों को गांव के लोगों ने ही, युवकों ने इकट्ठा पेड़ के नीचे, चौपाल पे, ग्राम पंचायत के आंगन में, जहां मिली, अलग अलग तरीकों से ये प्रोग्राम सुन। तो ये दूसरी ये थोड़ा जो शिक्षा का माहौल बनता जा रहा है और ये जो कोलैबोरेशन का अगर आपको बता दूं कि इसमें कौन कौन स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, कितने सारे पार्टीज इन्वॉल्व है, तो एक सरकार है, स्कूल है, आंगनबाड़ी है, वो सब तो है ही एक्ट। बच्चे एक गांव का इलेक्टेड मेंबर्स, स्कूल मैनेजमेंट कमेटी, तो आई फील कि ये एक ऐसा प्रयास है जिसमें हमने कोशिश करी है कि इस पूरे रास्ते में लोग एक दूसरे के साथ जुड़े और बच्चों की शिक्षा को कंटिन्यू रखें। अब इसके बहुत परिणाम भी पॉजिटिव आ रहे हैं, बहुत सारे लोग हमें फीडबैक दे रहे हैं और डिस्ट्रिक्ट स्तर पर इसकी ओनरशिप बहुत स्ट्रांग होती जा रही है। जिला परिषद इसको बहुत होल्ड करता है हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में। तो आई थिंक यहाँ मैं कहना चाहूंगा, बट बिफोर आई कंक्लूड, आई थिंक रेशमा, अगर आप अपनी तरफ से कुछ और जोड़ना चाहती हैं।
थैंक यू स्मृति। जैसे कि स्मृति ने सब कुछ थमा हुआ था वहां पेंडा 1 मई से लेके ये प्रोग्राम स्टार्ट हुआ, तब से लेके आज तक विदाउट फेल हम लोगों ने 70 एपिसोड कर चुके हैं हम लोग। आई एम सो हैप्पी कि आई एम पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोजेक्ट। मैं एक बात जरूर कहना चाहूंगी कि आकाशवाणी में आज तक बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम, बहुत सारे सब्जेक्ट लेके हुए, लेकिन कोई ऐसे स्कूल वहां पे नहीं आई है जैसे अब चल रही है, और बहुत सारे बच्चे उसमें पार्टिसिपेट हो रहे हैं। हम लोग बहुत सारे बच्चों से, पेरेंट्स से बातें करते हैं, बहुत सारी बातें भी सामने आती है। उनसे बातें करते वक्त एक बात पता चलती है जरूर कि दे आर एंजॉइंग ईच एंड एवरी एपिसोड, लिटरली दे आर सेलिब्रेटिंग। जैसे कि अभी आपने देखा लाउड स्पीकर लगा के वो लोग सुन रहे हैं, सेलिब्रेट करें। वहां पे बहुत सारे होर्डिंग्स लगाए जाते हैं, बैनर्स लगाए जाते हैं। तो हमारी वजह से, हम सबकी वजह से उनकी चेहरे पे एक मुस्कुराहट आती है, बहुत बड़ी बात है। और देखा जाए तो प्रथम से दिया गया हुआ जो सिलेबस है, जो पढ़ाई है, वो करने का सबसे इजीएस्ट वे, इसकी वजह से बच्चों के दिल में जो घबराहट होती है पढ़ाई को लेके, वो काफी हद तक कम हो चुकी है और हो रही है। बहुत सारे स्मृति जी भी हर एक एपिसोड में बताते हैं, अर्ली चाइल्डहुड एजुकेशन के बारे में बताते रहते हैं क्या करना चाहिए, तो पेरेंट्स भी वो फॉलो करते हैं। तो वो सब देखते हुए लगता है कि यस, बच्चे अपनी पढ़ाई अब से लेके एंजॉय कर रहे हैं। थैंक यू स्मृति
जी।
मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ कि आपका अनुभव बहुत सारे डिफरेंट प्रोग्राम्स के साथ भी होगा, तो इसमें इस वाले जो प्रोग्राम आप लोग कर रहे हैं और जो कोलैबोरेशन की बात हम लोग यहाँ पे डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, डू यू सी कि इसमें कुछ समथिंग क्वाइट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम योर नॉर्मल प्रोग्राम्स, और डू यू सी डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ कोलैबोरेशन आपके अलग अलग प्रोग्राम्स?
ये रुक्मिणी मैम, मैंने अब तक प्रोग्राम किए, बहुत सारे इंटरव्यूज किए, लेकिन काफी अलग है, क्योंकि जो बच्चों का जो स्पार्क है, एक्चुअल स्पार्क, वो दिखाई देता है। ये बहुत उनके लिए फायदेमंद प्रोग्राम हो रहा है।
थोड़ा सा एको आ रहा है, सुनाई दे रहा है?
जी।
I want to just circle back. Such a diverse set of experiences, उसमें से निचोड़ निकाल के to take out themes. I've been quite nervous कि इसको कैसे हम लोग इकट्ठा करें. But a couple of things जो अलग-अलग लोगों ने शायद अलग-अलग तरीके से बोला है. One of the things that Mirai, you mentioned, that of the two collaborations, one was completely non-financial, but one there was financial. While with the non-financial one, we may continue because you've learned and seen that there is some merit to it. But really, the one, what you've put in place, isko aage le jaane ke liye without a kind of a financial backing would not be possible. Similarly, Swati, the complex set of partnerships that you see, there's a large amount of kind of financial and contractual arrangements between all these parties. So I would say that's on one hand. And on the contrasting other side is probably, I'm थोड़ा सा मैं ज़्यादा black and white कर रही हूँ, उतना black and white नहीं है. But on the other side is the Samvedna type of work, which is completely based on human interaction, convincing each other. And in a way, जो शाळे बाहेरची शाळा का भी जो collaboration है, उसमें भी I think you're riding a lot on किसको कितना प्रेरित किया जा सकता है. So I just wanted some comments on how does money make a difference? If there was no money, and there is no money in some of these collaborations that we see, but money, future, durability, depth, how do you view these? And let me just go back to Mirai to go there. And I know, Mirai, you have some things you want to say about the government, and I don't know where this money, future, durability comes in there. So over to you, Mirai.
Sure, I think it will match. There's a money point also in the government collaborations. But before that, I just wanted to say, I think that one of the reasons perhaps the collaborations between non-governmental organizations, and of course in the case of Akashwani Maharashtra, we see it also, is that the starting point is the community. We don't have to explain to each other because we understand. Our work is grounded in communities. So that is the glue that binds us together, I feel. And that there's that basic understanding. And since you asked about the money, and I also wanted to share one collaboration we had on tuberculosis. Sorry for all the health examples, but being a public health person, with Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, it was a very fruitful collaboration. Ahmedabad has very high levels of incidence and prevalence of tuberculosis, TB. So somehow they found out about our work and they reached out to us, and we began a collaboration, which on the whole worked well. Although I must add here, is another learning. It took 2 years to cement the collaboration because they could not believe that women at the grassroots can do work on tuberculosis, can be barefoot lab technicians. I'm sure we would never have had those kinds of issues with Pratham, but it took us 2 years to convince our municipal corporation and the Director General of Health Services in New Delhi. On the money part, unfortunately, we had to discontinue our collaboration with the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation on TB because of money, because the budgets were so, I don't know how to say, I mean, they didn't cover the costs. As a small people's women's health cooperative, we had to keep on putting thousands of rupees, 50,000 rupees sometimes, lakhs sometimes. Forget about the fact that the money didn't come regularly, but the money was insufficient. And finally, the cooperative took a decision that, if government is keen to continue this work, then they should have a proper budget. We even made budgets together and sent them to Delhi and here and there, but it didn't happen. And sadly, we, with all goodwill, returned the lab, the kind of local grassroots lab, to the municipal corporation and all, because there just wasn't any money forthcoming. So yes, you're right. Money is not everything, but at a certain point, particularly if you want to scale up a model or an idea, we do need resources. I mean, that's just how things are. I mean, who's going to underwrite all the costs? At some point, somebody has to underwrite the costs. It could be jointly in the case of two nonprofits, or it may be when government is involved through their budgets, and there must be realistic budgets. I mean, we're not talking about fancy high salaries here, but just the basics must be covered. Otherwise, how can grassroots women's cooperatives, unions, NGOs, how can they continue these kind of collaborations? So that was on the money. I just had one or two more points on the government collaboration. It was a huge capacity building because it was for the first time, that's why it took 2 years, that they agreed to have a lab in Jhopatpattis and slums. We said one of the reasons people don't come for For TBs, they have to go far to the hospitals and stay in long lines. So why don't we take the diagnostic to where they live? So it was located there, and the local women from the Chalis, as we say, and Jhopatpattis, they were trained to be barefoot technicians, 10th pass, 12th pass. So it was a huge capacity building for women, for the community, for those young women who, luckily, even after we finished the collaboration because of this money issue, budget issue, they went on and they got good jobs as technicians, and some of them were absorbed by the municipal corporation. And the health workers who did the TB health awareness and education, they remained with the cooperative with us. One other problem that we did have, I must say, on the negative side in this collaboration was that we were viewed as a competitor due to performance. They used to tell us, your performance is too high. You're detecting too many TB cases, so we won't look good. We want to show that Ahmedabad and Gujarat are ahead. You're showing that we have so much tuberculosis. That's not a good thing, they told us. But we said, look, we are transparent and we don't fudge data. This is how it is. This is the reality. We're interested in saving lives and controlling tuberculosis. So that was a problem, actually, in the collaboration. Just thought I'd mention that. I think I'll stop here because others might like to add.
Swati, I know you had trouble hearing my question. So therefore, I have the liberty to change my question so I can give you a more direct one. Swati,
Sure.
can you hear now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So,
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
another common theme, I think it pertains to everyone, but I think you brought it up about this common vision and competing interests. So, you have the architecture of what you have has so many pieces, moving pieces to this puzzle. And I'm sure this is a constant kind of balancing act that you have to do about how competing interests and common vision need to be calibrated. Do you have any examples you could cite just in terms of, how to learn, how to put these together? I can see that in the Samvedna Pratham case as well, there is chess and then there is education. And, while there's a common view that, children need to develop, how to manage, potentially the core interest of the two organizations might be something that we'd get Chavi and Bushra to talk on later. But Swati, thoughts on this and experiences that you feel are useful for us?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Rukmini. And, I would like to take this sort of DIB example a little further just on this. Before I worked with UBS, I was working actually with Dalberg, and we'd been doing some research on some of this innovative financing pieces and thinking about what it would actually take to bring a consortium such as this together, and interviewing stakeholders who would typically fall into these different roles, right? So what I mean by that is somebody who would come in as an outcome funder who would pay for the outcomes, and another person who we thought would be best suited to sort of play the investor role, would front the capital and then later recoup capital, and then of course service providers. And we were trying to understand what would be the right sort of incentives that would bring them to the table around some of these innovative financing mechanisms. And one of the interesting pieces that came up was the sort of challenges that people never identified as such, but were holding them back from coming forward. So particularly in the case, for example, of organizations who could actually play the role of an outcome, who had those deep pockets, often felt that a structure like a DIB took away from what their traditional role was. So and what I mean by that is, in a DIB structure, what would happen is that, you would say that, listen, I have the deep pockets. I'm going to invest money in figuring out what the right outcomes are. That's the piece I'm going to invest in. And then I'm going to maybe try and also figure out what are the sort of what's a good price for this outcome. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to build the market, sort of figure that piece out. And then I'm going to leave the actual implementation and sort of monitoring and evaluation to a different set of actors. But traditionally, the way sort of foundations and a lot of other folks have been set up is that you end up doing the whole sort of value chain of activities. You do the identification, you do the supporting, you do the M&E. You're really, you do the picking of your grantees as well. When in a structure like a DIB, you may not do that. You may just say all right, this is what I want, this is what I see the future should look like, and that's where the buck stops for me in some senses. So while the vision was the same, like you said, what it actually required was for folks to actually think about an evolution in their role, how they could contribute to the market going forward, and that's actually what was holding people back, because it was a little bit territorial. It was a little bit, this is my brand, this is what I've actually invested in, this is what I've done. If the future looks different, what role will I play in that? And I think, the answer to that is it's really the same, right? Which is basically that we have to come together to define what that evolution in different roles could look like. What is success time, and which organizations are best suited from a mission, vision, and sort of passion really perspective as well, to take those pieces on. So I think this question absolutely rings true. I think we see a lot of it as well. I think a lot of it comes from how we've defined what we see ourselves as doing in the sector, less from what we're able to do and what we're capable of doing. And I think the way to really address it is what you call it, I think, to sort of come together and discuss and think about where we can fit, if we are to do things in a different way, and also sort of think about how we may be acting differently if we were to start thinking very actively about leveraging what somebody else can bring to the table. If I'm responsible for the whole value chain, the sort of pieces that I have to put together in my organization are fundamentally different from if my model is built around working together and with other organizations and thinking about a sort of distributed ownership model. And I think that's where sort of conversation is critical. I do want to take the liberty of answering your other question as well, Rukmini, because Annapurni did actually send it to me, around money and partnerships, if I may. I think one of the things that I sort of wanted to highlight is one of the challenges that we've heard about from some of our grantees is actually identifying funding for projects which are built around partnership and built around bringing a bunch of different stakeholders together. And sort of exemplify that, basically what we're looking at are specifically, I think, in the CSR world, this is something that we've heard from grantees continues to be a challenge in some senses, primarily because a lot of these initiatives require that longer term investment, require that vision rather than discrete KPIs. A lot of times collaboration is actually around ecosystem building. It's around capacity building. What the previous speaker had just outlined as well. It's about and those things are very difficult to sort of KPI to your annual financial cycle, which many CSR grants at times can be around. And I mean, we've sort of struggled with that internally too, sort of how we change the orientation of our internal stakeholders to take that longer term perspective, which the foundation has traditionally had. And I think that piece, particularly from a collaboration perspective, where a lot of the initiatives which rely on collaboration have inherently got to have that longer term perspective, often struggle with raising that type of funding. I think that's where I've seen that money can be an important piece that we have to kind of solve for from a domestic funding perspective. I'll stop there.
I want to go next to Bhushita and to Chavi, just with a simple question that we started the conversation with Swati about: competing interests and common vision. Chavi, Bhushita wants to have more investment in chess from our people. And at some point, let's say if you are representing Pratham, you feel that no, we have a core that we have to deliver. What would be the nature of the conversation from both sides? Just a little, hopefully we'll not get to that, but just a little sense of how would we balance this?
So I feel that chess is a sport that actually complements education in a way. because there are so many things that you can learn from chess that will help you with your academics. For example, it is scientifically proven that chess, it arouses your creativity, it improves your language skills, and it also improves your mathematical reasoning skills and logic. So both sides of your brain are getting activated, and most importantly, chess teaches you patience and concentration and focus. So in academics, as a student, it is very important to stay focused in your books and in the classroom. And being a teenager, it is like, it's like your nature to get distracted. But if you are able to keep that focus on, then you will be able to excel in your studies, and you will be able to, make the most out of whatever you are doing. So that is how chess has helped me with my education. And it teaches you other life skills like time management. It teaches you how to manage the ups and downs. Like, for example, in your exams, if you don't perform well, then sometimes you get very, very sad about that. But being a sports person, you learn how to juggle those losses and wins, and you're not able to you're not like, you don't feel so bad about getting a bad result. You actually treat every failure as an opportunity to learn more, and to improve upon your mistakes and become a better version of yourself. So that's why I don't take chess and education as competing factors. I take them as, like, things that complement each other and support each other.
Chavi, do you agree? Has she convinced you that we can go together?
Yeah, I think to some extent, but I would still pilot it out and assess for myself whether it's actually true. So whether my children who have been part of this the chess program, are they actually improving their educational their skills, like mathematical skills or something like that. But I think, to answer your question, ma'am, I think at some point, I mean, it's very important for both the organizations to be clear about where they are headed. So if, for example, in this case, this is something that, that is, I mean, interesting, but not a priority, for example, then it's important to let the other person know earlier than later so that, they can find their own ways. So, for example, with Bhushita, currently our model is that, it's a one-on-one model. So one-on-one meaning, a batch of students with one coach, and we realized that, it would be very difficult to scale such a model. So now we are working with Samvedna to design digital resources so that it can still, the know-how can still be can be shared with more and more children, and we can implement it with less human resource requirements. So I think we'll see where it is headed, but I think those were my 2 cents.
I know we have to sort of maybe bring it to a concluding round. I want to turn to Annapurni. Annapurni, Pratham ke side se, you've been kind of the pivoting point कि 500 organizations के साथ कुछ ना कुछ लेना देना during this period हमारा हुआ है. उसमें कुछ बड़े organizations हैं, कुछ छोटे हैं, कुछ even individuals हैं, right? Now, as we look beyond, I mean, someday this current phase is going to end, or it's going to be transformed into something more manageable. Looking across your last few months and 500 organizations, and let's say, like in Hindi movies, na, heroine झूला पे झूलते झूलते बड़े हो जाते हैं. So like that, if we just fast forward from the next, few months, how much of the relationships that have been built in this time do you see continuing? And coming back to the period jab झूला झूल रहा है, what would we do if we value, a large number of these relationships, especially the human angle that we have built up? हमें अभी क्या करना चाहिए? हमें मतलब, wherever you are placed, what would you do to want certain aspects of these to endure? And I'm just to Reshma and Smithan, I'm going to ask you that the same thing. कि अभी एक बहुत high peak पे चल रहा है. आगे की दिशा क्या आपको दिखता है? बट अन्नपूर्णी फर्स्ट.
Yeah, so I mean, when we started sending out these messages, when we started sending out these content, we were just trying to say that we have this. अगर आपको चाहिए तो हम आपको भी भेज सकते हैं. And it started as a very small effort. We sent it out to a few friends and said, आपके organization में ज़रूरत है, तो we can start sending it. And ma'am, like you rightly pointed out, right now we have about 600, partners with us who are working, and they are from very different fields. Like we definitely have SEWA and Pratham, big organizations, but we also have private schools. We also have farmers associations. So it's a very diverse group that we are catering to. One of the things that is very important to understand in this partnership is that the number of people on my speed dial have increased significantly. My most contacted people are usually these partners, because almost every week, feedback on the messages we send out, why something worked or something didn't work, we get response back. So I think that has I've made more COVID friends than I had before. So definitely that's happened. But what we have seen is that we've been able to build a lot of synergy. I mean, where there were completely parallel programs or parallel objectives, we were able to get it together and understand what works on both sides. Like Mirai ma'am was mentioning that there are areas where smartphone connection is not there. So there is actually a request from SEWA only in one of the states saying, we don't want WhatsApp messages. Can you send us SMS message? So it was a lot of back and forth on things. We were getting very quick and fast feedback from them, which helped us tweak our programs as well. So that's what has been happening for the last few months. But where I see this going is, I feel like there's a possibility of integration at large scales. There's learning from different organizations that can seep through, and maybe an integrated approach can happen in the future, where we provide what is our expertise, but also the partner provides what their expertise is, and we could move towards a common vision. In this response time, we've been able to build that, but I think we should continue building it even in the future. I also wanted to cite one more thing, which I think Swati messaged and reminded me, is that in this time, not just private schools, partners, NGOs, one of the big efforts that we've made is around volunteering. I think at this time we were a small team which was working on a few content pieces. And the demand suddenly increased, and we had to cater to it. We needed additional hands-on tech, and really that has been something that volunteers have come forth and done on LinkedIn, through partners like UBS, through partners like Emphasis, who said that we have people and we want to do virtual volunteering. Why don't you build a program and see if we can help? And in almost 3 months, we've had 600 people come in and work with us. Yes,
Wow.
we have tried to put things together at our end, but it's their motivation and their energy to say that beyond our work, we want to give some hours to doing this engagement. So can you put something together? Which has been a great learning experience, but I think both sides.
Reshma and Nitin, fast forward to May 2021. What would we like to have in place?
सो आई थिंक मैं थोड़ा सा ये बताना चाहूंगा कि हमारा जो अनुभव है उसके आधार पे अगर मुझे इस सवाल का जवाब देना है, तो बहुत सारी चीजें आगे आने वाले न्यू नॉर्मलसी में करने लायक हैं, बट सिर्फ मुझे थोड़ा सा कॉशनरी लगता है, और मुझे लगता है कि वो सबको उसका ख्याल रखना चाहिए, जो मैं तो खुद रखूंगा लेकिन बाकी लोगों को भी रखना चाहिए, कि हमारी एक टेंडेंसी होती है, ये ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी है कि बैक टू पैवेलियन जाके हम वी आर मिसिंग स्कूल्स, बट जैसे स्कूल शुरू हो जाएंगे ये बहुत गलत होगा अगर हमने ये जो 6, 7, 8 महीने में जो नया सीखा है वो अगर हम उसको साथ में ना लेके जाएं और फिर से हम अपने पुराने जूते और पुराने कपड़े और पुराने ही सब कुछ पहनने लग गए, तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारी जो इस दरमियान जो हमने नया सीखा है वो हम आगे नहीं ले जा पाएंगे। सो मैं चाहूंगा कि आने वाले समय में मैं और मेरे साथ में जितने लोग हैं, समुदाय हैं, जो लोग हैं, नई चीजों को भी साथ में पकड़कर आगे जाए। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अभी इस पूरे पीरियड में, अब तक की पूरे मतलब प्री कोविड पीरियड तक अगर आप समझे, तो बच्चों की शिक्षा का पूरा भार और पूरा जिम्मा स्कूल और टीचर्स के कंधों पे था, और अचानक कोविड के वजह से वो कंधा बदल के पेरेंट बन गया। बट ये कोलैबोरेशन से ही होने वाला काम है। अगर हम ये देखें कि ये किसी एक का काम नहीं है, मतलब ये चाइनीज प्रोवर्ब तो हम जानते ही हैं कि टू अपब्रिंग अ चाइल्ड इट रिक्वायर्स अ होल विलेज। वो यही है, टू एजुकेट अ चाइल्ड। आई थिंक ये सब लोगों की जरूरत होती है। माँ का भी भूमिका है, टीचर का भी भूमिका है, समुदाय का भी भूमिका है, स्कूल के बिल्डिंग का भी भूमिका है, और वो लाउड स्पीकर का भी भूमिका है। तो आई फील कि ये कोलैबोरेशन और मजबूत बने, हम इसको और जिंदा रखें, और आने वाले समय में भी इसको हम रखते रहें। जो सवाल आपने थोड़ी देर पहले पूछा था मनी के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, मुझे लगता है कि मैं उसके बारे में भी एक छोटा जवाब देना चाहूंगा। मनी जो होता है वो प्रायोरिटी दर जाता है कि आप कितने कमिटेड हो कि किसी चीज के लिए। फॉर एग्जांपल, अभी हमारा फोकस ज्यादा छोटे बच्चे, उनकी स्कूली शिक्षा, उनका विकास, ये रहता है। तो हमें ये दिखता है कि हमारे समाज का और हमारे सरकार का भी उसके प्रति अभी तक देखने का जो नजरिया था, उसके प्रति जो इन्वेस्टमेंट हमारे देश में जितनी होनी चाहिए, हम रेमेडी की बात करते हैं, हम बाद में जाके बच्चों को पढ़ना नहीं आता है, उसके बहुत सारे कारण ढूंढते हैं, और असर की वजह से हमें वो अब आसान भी हो गया है कि बच्चों को कितना पढ़ना नहीं आता है तो जल्दी कुछ करो और आगे बढ़ाओ। बट उसकी नींव पक्की करने के लिए हम बहुत इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं करते हैं, एंड दिस इज अ रियल प्रॉब्लम कि फाइनेंशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट कम होती है। छोटे बच्चों के प्रति देखने का, उनके प्रति काम करने वाले लोगों का के बारे में भी जो हमारा नजरिया है, वो अनट्रेंड होंगे तो भी चलेगा, ज्यादा प्रोफेशनल लोगों की वहां जरूरत नहीं है, कॉलेज में सिखाने वाला वर्सेस प्री स्कूल में सिखाने वाले की। तो ये बहुत जो चीज है, ये आई थिंक मोटे हद तक वो पैसे से जुड़ी हुई होती है। एंड जब तक हमारे अब न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी आई है और उन्होंने इस अर्ली इयर्स को इम्पोर्टेंस दिया है, तो आई फील कि कोलैबोरेशन के काम में कमिटमेंट एंड पैशन, इस चीजों के साथ साथ लोगों का माइंडसेट और उसकी तरफ जाने वाली चीजें, वो जरूर होता है। बट उसके साथ साथ ये फाइनेंशियल एलोकेशन भी बहुत महत्व देता है। जिस चीज में पैसा ज्यादा होता है हमारे समाज में, उसका महत्व ज्यादा होता है। तो आई फील कि एक वो मुद्दा भी जरूरी है, बट साथ साथ सिर्फ पैसे से काम नहीं होगा। मतलब ये भी हमारा सबक है कि बहुत सारे पैसे हैं हमारे स्कूल में, बहुत कुछ रिसोर्सेस हैं, इसका मतलब बच्चे सीख ही रहे होंगे, ऐसा हमारा अनुभव और हमारा निरीक्षण नहीं है। उसके लिए कमिटमेंट चाहिए होती है और साथ में मिलकर काम करने की जरूरत होती है। मैं कई प्राइवेट स्कूल में मैंने ये बोर्ड देखा है मैम, कि पेरेंट्स आर नॉट अलाउड बियॉन्ड दिस पॉइंट। हमें इस संस्कृति से बाहर होना होगा और कोलैबोरेटिवली काम करते आगे बढ़ना होगा। सो विद दैट आई विल स्टॉप, बट रेशमा may want to add something.
Yes, sure. कोलैबोरेशन की जरूर कहना चाहूंगी, सिर्फ पढ़ाई काफी नहीं है, उसी के साथ अदर एक्टिविटीज, अदर स्किल होना भी बहुत जरूरी है। जैसे कि हम लोगों ने हमारी प्रोग्राम में एक नया स्लॉट ऐड किया है जो कि है अभ्यासाची गोडी त्याला कौशल्याची जोडी। पढ़ाई के साथ अदर एक्टिविटी भी होनी चाहिए, और वैसे उस तरीके से बच्चों को गाइड किया जाता है कि बच्चों का इंटरेस्ट देखा जाता है, और उसी हिसाब से नितिन जी या हमारे कोई और भी गेस्ट आते हैं तो उन्हें बताया जाता है कि आगे चल के आप क्या करना चाहते हो। ये भी बात उतनी ही जरूरी है। नितिन जी।
जी, आई थिंक मैम एक छोटा सा बात जो, क्योंकि रेशमा ने कहा है, मुझे लगता है कि ये जो पढ़ाई का मामला है, इसमें मतलब टीचर की एक भूमिका जरूर है, बट हम अभी गांव-गांव में देख रहे हैं तो गांव का कारपेंटर के पास बच्चे जा रहे हैं, उससे भी कुछ सीख रहे हैं, लोहार के पास जा रहे हैं, उससे भी कुछ सीख रहे हैं, टेलर से पूछ रहे हैं। तो सीखने का के लिए जो कोलैबोरेशन होना चाहिए, हमारे एक चंद्रपुर जिले के सरपंच की कुछ दिनों पहले हमने मुलाकात इंटरव्यू किया था, तो उसमें उन्होंने कहा था कि आपके प्रोग्राम को सुनने के बाद मैंने अपने पूरे गांव को के दीवारों को शिक्षा का माहौल बना दिया है, सब जगह पे पेंटिंग कर रखा हुआ है। तो अलग अलग तरीके के अनुभव है, बट सबको मिलके साथ में आने के लिए बहुत सारे प्रयास करने पड़ेंगे, ऐसा हमें लगता है, और वो हम चाहेंगे कि 2021 में भी हमें दिखाई दे।
Okay. I don't know how I'm going to do this because this is a really enjoyable conversation. तो मैं दो चीज कर रही थी. एक तो मैंने इंग्लिश में, frankly, we have this whole session on collaboration, and I had never looked at actually what is a technical definition of collaboration. So I just looked up the definition of collaboration in English, and I don't know, Wikipedia and ऐसी चीजें ना बहुत ज्यादा precise नहीं होती हैं, but it says doing something with someone else together is sort of the broad definition of collaboration. इसी को अगर, मुझे अक्सर इंटरेस्टिंग लगता है कि अलग अलग भाषा में इसका वर्ड क्या है, एंड उस वर्ड के पेट में लेट अस से कौन सी भावना आती है. तो आई थिंक सहयोग या सहभागिता, आई थिंक इज अ ग्रेटर व्यू ऑफ पार्टनरशिप, कि अब किसी एक पार्ट के आप हिस्सा बन के उसको कुछ करो, as opposed to working side by side together. That could be a whole other exercise of, trying to dissect words. But I want to turn to Mirai and Swati, and for in no particular order, to say that imagine that there is, and as you can see, there is a lot of people at maybe early stages of collaboration or a young collaboration like Samvedna. Three things that you want to tell them on the path forward. What are some three things that you feel you've learned from the many collaborations or many partnerships that you've had that you would like to give to someone who's starting out on this journey? Swati, Mirai, whoever wants to go first.
So I think. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. No, I just said that one of the things I said is, common vision and common values. That's important. So what are the ideas and perspectives that we share? And to what is the common point, and perhaps where are the gaps? I think the other thing is what Swati mentioned, which is the human element. Constant, I think, contact, communication, feedback. If you are to partner, you have to constantly discuss, share, tweak, disagree, agree to disagree. So many things. Respect the other person's point of view. And really, it's about building friendships. Partnerships also work really well if there's friendships developing as well. So that would be the second thing. And then I think also, which has also been mentioned by many, what is the long-term vision? I mean, different organizations have different vision and priority. In our case, we see ourselves as a movement of women at the grassroots. So we are less interested in doing sporadic projects and more building local women's capacity for social change. And projects are part of that process. The project isn't an end in itself, it's a means. So is that vision shared by the partner? So those 2-3 things, I think, and then everything else follows, the money. And of course, on money, one always has to be clear so that there's no misunderstanding from day one. But that all will follow. But I think that kind of tuning, and I think Annapurni mentioned a nice word, synergy. That kind of tuning and chemistry and coming together, I think that those kinds of things are very important to keep in mind. And also patience doesn't happen overnight. Partnerships and relationships build, so we have to be patient and persistent and persevere. Don't give up. Sometimes we have to throw in the towel, but not too much.
Swati?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's funny because I was going to just jump in and give you a marriage analogy, and I feel like everything Myra said basically is something a therapist would tell you on how to stick with it, and everything will be fine in the end. But really, it is, I think there are a lot of ups and downs, and communication, I think, is key. I have a little baby at home now, and that's definitely, she's a COVID baby. She's put a lot of different kinds of stresses, which I think even above and beyond what a 1-year-old would do generally. And I think learning from that, I think, success of any partnership really is, I think the biggest one is communication. I think a second one that I've learned in personal life, and I think we've carried it forward in our work as well, is realistic expectations. I think there's definitely that vision and mission. You start off with good, like very large aspirations, and I think that's what really gets people going and excited to be in a room together. But I think on some level, you do need to also understand we can't hit the absolute ideal, what is still a good thing to do? Because collaborations, I mean, I firmly do believe that collaborations definitely help you achieve things that are inherently aspirational, whether they are able to meet 100% of the ideal that you started with or not. I think comparing it to that sort of undermines the whole process and what you're able to achieve through it. So I think a big one is realistic expectations, be proud of what you're achieving regardless. And I think value what every other person that you're working with brings to the table, because and a lot of that I think often ends up also having to be a process in realizing what it is that you're best at. It may mean at times letting go of additional things that you know that you can do, but there may be other folks that you have to accept are actually better at doing it. So sort of letting go and also then having confidence in what you're actually good at. Yep, going to stop there.
Bhushita, your view?
So I really learned a lot from what you just told us about, what we need to keep in mind when we are collaborating with someone, and how teamwork should work, and about how practicality should be kept in mind, how scalability should be kept in mind, how we should respect each other's opinion, and how we should also like be more flexible and more open minded in general. So that's what I learned. And I feel that we should take collaborations as a learning opportunity more than just a collaboration, because when we go into a collaboration with an open mind, with with like a with the perspective that we are going to learn something new and imbibe something new into our life from that collaboration, then it becomes even more successful, because we get more accepting of the other person's views, and we are able to learn life skills from that teamwork.
I wish we had many more 16-year-olds who were exactly like this. Smithin, Reshma, just your views on collaboration?
Yeah, so I think three आपने बोले हैं तो तीन ही बात है. One is plan together, and plan which is like achievable goal, थोड़ा सा ऐसा रखें. Then second is work together with a trust and respect. And third, check जहां तक आप पहुंचे हो, जहां आपने प्लान किया था, क्या आप लोग वहां तक पहुंच पाए हो, एनालाइज करो एंड देन फर्दर आगे बढ़ो.
Reshma? Is she there? Reshma?
Yeah. बस फॉर मी के एक साथ मिलके बस आगे चलते जाना, बच्चों की पढ़ाई कहीं रुकनी नहीं चाहिए. That's it.
Okay. So this is really fantastic. मुझे लगता है कि COVID has done many really harsh things to many people, and so I don't want to unnecessarily kind of put a positive twist to this period. But I think that this whole thing is कि आप लोगों के साथ कैसे काम करना शुरू करोगे अगर उनको मिलने का मौका नहीं मिलता है, या किसी क्राइसिस के वजह से या किसी हालात के वजह से you have to reach out to other people. So I am very grateful. I mean, firstly, of course, to Pradhan for organizing something like this, which allows us to bring chess. I was just thinking that if I had to put key words for this panel, It would be development bonds, chess, TV, radio. I mean, there is what kind of a situation would you have where these kinds of words would have to be knit together? And yet, I think हमारे बोलने में, हमारे सुनने में बहुत सारी common चीजें हैं. You know, whether it is a collaboration between individuals or organizations, whether there is money now or not, there are reasons why some short-term arrangements may be very useful to, in fact, learn what out of that can become longer term. I'm still very curious about how to balance this common interest and competing views. And finally, I think that I mean, across the board, I mean, it goes without saying that without this strong human investment, nothing, whether it is a team or a very large group of people coming together, none of this can work. But I also think, and I think, maybe it is the Zoom or whatever the video platforms. I feel like in the last couple of months, at least for me, there has been more opportunity to actually reflect on some of these things that underlie some of the work that we do. We talk a lot about education or about, in my case, about, say, assessment, but very often not so much about the nuts and bolts which lie under that. And so I think, again, I want to thank Pratham for organizing this Samagam. I also like events where the spelling is very easy. I'm always thinking about what can children read. So Samagam is a very easy thing to read. And therefore, then hopefully it will be easy for people to come together. I know that there is a plenary, I think, after this. I'm not exactly sure what happens after this. But I want to thank all of you. Our COVID friendships are increasing. And hopefully soon we'll be able to drop the word COVID and keep the word friendship and be able to move ahead. So big thanks to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody, and big thank you to our moderator.
Thank you. Bye.
So
Bye.
just sign out now, Rukmini?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.